Hello and welcome to coverage of the 43rd edition of the San Sebastian Classic, the Donostia Classico. We are, of course, less than a week since the Tour de France finished, and we're revisiting this man, Remco Evenepoel, as he goes in search of his third victory to become a record-equaling three-time winner of the San Sebastian Classic. He was, of course, not at the Tour de France, but he's about to start his big build-up. Today, in fact, is underway as we roll towards winning this for the third time and then going to the Vuelta and the Worlds. But in this year, of course, not in that order, because we are just 1 week away from the elite men's road race that he won last year. These are the pictures of him winning the San Sebastian Classic 1 year ago, and it started that roll where he took on the World's road race and the Vuelta, winning all three. Can he do it again? And that was a result from 1 year ago. Pavel Sivakov nearly 2 minutes down on Remco Evenepoel. He took off with 44k covered last year and went on to win solo. Let's have a look at the route again, because the first 150 kilometres or so is pretty much exactly the same as it was 1 year ago. The difference this year is that we are revisiting the very, very tough finale of 2019, which was the first time that Remco Evenepoel won the race. It takes in the Heiskibel, effectively retracing stage 2 of this year's Tour de France when we were in the Basque Country, of course, for the Grand Départ. It then goes back through the finish line in San Sebastian to take in the very tough Mendidoroz for the first time in 4 years, before going back over the Murgil and descending really fast along the coastal road back into San Sebastian. Of course, in the Tour de France, that's where we saw Victor Lafay take his incredible late attacking stage win. And this weekend we have a double header here at the home of cycling, Eurosport GCN, as we bring you the San Sebastian Classic today, which mirrors stage 2 of the Tour de France, and then tomorrow the Circuito de Getxo, which mirrors stage 1. What a fantastic way to celebrate everything that's been great about that opening to this year's Tour de France. 1 year ago today, we were talking about what would be happening in a year's time when the Grand Départ came to the Basque Country. And now here we are, 1 year on, it's all happened. The Tour de France is complete. Jonas Vingegaard has taken his second win. He is not here today, but we're left with an awful lot of riders that were in this year's Tour de France. 43 of them, in actual fact, in this field here today. We're about to join the race live. My name is Jez Cox. I've been off air for a few weeks while the Tour de France has been on, and I am delighted to say that I'm joined by our regular wingman as well, Brian Smith.
Hi, Jez. Looking forward to this one. Like you just said, this is replicas of stages of the Tour de France, and I believe that it's all coming back together. So hopefully we'll get to this action and see the big boys starting to play.
We have had an early breakaway today of 5 riders who are nearly all back in the fold, because, as Brian Smith just mentioned, it is coming back together. We started the day very early on with a breakaway of 5. And I believe we might be, I'm just looking to see, no, we're joining the race now live by the look of it as well. We did have 5 riders clear. I'll update you on who they were, because some of them are still in there. Romain Bardet is there right at the back. He's been in the break from the start, which is probably why he's giving his legs a shake out. And look at who he has with him as well. He has the other remaining rider from that breakaway, Nathan van Hooijdonk, there second from the back in the colours of Jumbo-Visma. And who should have joined them but the fully white skin-suited form of last year's winner, the double winner, of course, Remco Evenepoel, right there in that breakaway. So we're joining live pictures here as we look at them. This is the chase. The leading riders from our peloton who are chasing it, you can see from the dark colours of Movistar that they have missed this breakaway as well. I'll be able to update you on who's in that leading group in just a moment. I've mentioned already that Romain Bardet and Nathan van Hooijdonk are still there from the early breakaway. In there with them too, the full white skin suit of the world champion Remco Evenepoel. The green jersey, I'm pleased to see, Alexander Vlasov back. We haven't seen him racing at the front end for a while. So we just watched the pictures here of the world champion Remco Evenepoel ripping away in that Basque sunshine underneath the trees here on the lights, I believe this was, as they went over the top. That was Julien Bernard being caught. He'd been in the breakaway since the start as well. One of the elder statesmen of the Lidl Trek team. Bernard back in the fold. And you can just see Alexander Vlasov there in the background, over the shoulder, Remco Evenepoel. One of the first of those riders to try and jump clear the Russian and get across to him in the colours of Bora Hansgrohe. So that's the group complete. The other rider in there is Bertie Bettiol, Alberto Bettiol there in the pink of EF Education, easy post. And the other rider is Peo Bilbao, of course, stage winner at the Tour de France this year, the Spaniard. So, two Belgians in Evenepoel and Nathan van Hooijdonk, an Italian in Alberto Bettiol in the pink there, right in the middle. Bardet, Romain Bardet, in the black and blue of Team DSM. Good to see him back at things because he dropped out of the Tour de France with concussion. So he's back and at it and looking in good form, although he is one of two riders who's been out there since the beginning. Wonderful shots, Brian, and boy, is this a strong breakaway. This could be it, surely.
Well, it was last year, wasn't it, when Remco Evenepoel went, but he went solo last year, and you know, from that attack there, I thought he was trying to do something very similar, but he has dragged a very powerful group away with him. So, you know, three riders were able to go across them: Vlasov, Bettiol, and Bilbao. Bilbao, you know, that stage win in the Tour de France, great form coming into this. He would love to win this race. It's, you know, one of his, as a Basque rider, one of the local races, but 39 seconds is a good enough gap. But, you know, just marking down, you know, other types of favourites that were in here, but just saw a glance of the front of the peloton, and it was Movistar. You know, we had a counter-attack involving Ivan Garcia Cortina of Movistar, and you know, I think, you know, another favourite we have to kind of look at here is UAE Team Emirates and Ayuso, and recently, you know, a winner of a race, Mark Hirschi. So very small group. We're going to call this a peloton led by Movistar.
You are one win away from tying the record here in San Sebastian. Any odds?
Still a long career, so still many chances to try and go for the third win, but of course it's a big goal again to win tomorrow. I think it's a race that suits me maybe the best together with Liège in the whole calendar, so yeah, just gonna try to go for it.
When you first won here, you said that the trophy you had it in your home in a very good spot. Now if you win with the rainbow jersey, that photo would be even more amazing.
Yes, exactly. I think it would be a very special way to say goodbye to the jersey, to win here in San Sebastian, my first very big pro victory. So I think it's an extra motivation to try and go for it.
Are you sure that you are saying goodbye to the jersey?
Maybe for one day.
Big talk from Remco Evenepoel. We've come to expect that from him. He also mentioned in the same interviews yesterday, Brian, in fact, I think this is a direct translation from Flemish, but he was talking about levelling up, about the prospect of facing Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar at next year's Tour de France. But he's got a little bit of work on his hands before then, as we see the chasing group being formed here by Jon Izagirre, another stage winner from the Tour de France, riding for Cofidis. He is trying to forge a little breakaway. But just coming back to that interview, Brian, with Remco Evenepoel, he's got a lot on his plate these next few weeks, even though he might still be thinking about next year's Tour de France.
Yeah, it's always difficult for a young rider like Evenepoel to kind of sit and watch the Tour de France. He is one of the best in the world. That's why he's the world champion. But, you know, I think in his interview there, he's going to have a long career. But, you know, we thought that about other riders in the past, that, you know, even Egan Bernal. There's a nasty accident here by one of the riders for Arkea Samsic is coming off, and what looked as if it was a kind of high speed, quite a tricky descent there. So, you know, luckily the race doctor is on hand there. But yeah, I've raced in this part of the world, you know, the very steep climbs, but also very kind of tricky descents. But just looking at, you know, that interview there with Remco Evenepoel, I know the course in Glasgow. I don't think it doesn't suit him. I think it suits maybe kind of other riders a wee bit better, but you never know on that kind of course. And I tell you what, if it rains in Glasgow, which it can do from time to time, it's going to be a lottery around that circuit. So whoever designed that circuit, I don't know if they're even a cyclist, because you know it's really treacherous. I know we've had this in the past, but this is the World Championships, and that circuit is very, very dangerous. But just getting back to the race here, you know, this is Ivan Garcia Contina. He was one of the kind of counter-attackers. They do have a couple of riders. The problem about this chasing group, we just saw attacked by Jon Izagirre, is there's no big numbers, and Van Seven now was just kind of blocking and chasing things down and placing, as you would do, because you've got, you know, your teammate and, you know, race favourite in front. So a very small group here in the peloton, but no team with big numbers. And I was just marking down a few, you know, Astana. They came here with Lysenko and, you know, a few others. Well, they aren't represented in the front here. Movistar trying to do something about it. They missed it. Also, you have to say UAE, I've just mentioned them, kind of missed out in this one. And, you know, even Alpecin Deceuninck, they were on the attack with Quinten Hermans on the Yaskabel. So there's quite a few teams have kind of missed out in this one. And you can see from Bardet at the back, he's been in the breakaway. He was a bit surprising to me, and I saying it was Guglielmi that was in that fall for Rakir Samsic. When I looked at the group that was in front, it was only a small group, and I didn't think they would have much chance of going all the way. But Romain Bardet surprised me by getting in the breakaway. He went from distance, he's kind of hanging on the back now, but Remco Evenepoel isn't hanging around, and we can see that you know, splinter groups off the front of that chasing group. It's going to take a really concerted effort, JS, if any riders are going to come across this 30-odd second gap. Yeah, absolutely. It's Romain Bardet sitting on the back here for DSM Firmenich, as they're now called, in the black and blue. The breakaway that he and Nathan van Hooydonk were in, that's now been absorbed by this group here, the Evenepoel group, actually was the second break of the day, because Romain Bardet was the first rider to attack today, and he got away in quite a big group, 7 or 8 riders early on before they got to the first climb of the Meca. But they were brought back in on the ascent of that climb, and then he went again, Romain Bardet, and still finds himself in this leading group. That should at least, I'd have thought, he's looking a little bit ropey at the back end, Brian, but it might at least buy him a little bit of sitting on time, the fact that everyone knows that he and Nathan van Hooydonk have been out there for so long today. We have 60 kilometres to go now. They're riding back in the direction of the harbour, back in the direction of the sea. This is the chasing group being led by Ivan Garcia Cortina. I'm looking to see who the EF Education rider is there. Might be Nelson Paulus, possibly former winner of this race. Yeah, yeah, did look as if it was Nelson Paulus who was there, and he won't ride because he's got Betio in the front there, and you know, you can see a lot breaking down in this kind of chasing group. You know, a small group here of 7 riders, but the riders that are in front have got teammates there. So to go across, they've already shown that they can't stay with the stronger riders in the climbs, because that's how this kind of counter-attack happened in the previous climb. So they don't have the legs to go in the climbs, and to bring them back, like I was saying, you need a concerted effort and not just trying to kind of attack this group behind and hope everybody will ride with you.
Watch there, Remco Evenepoel, defending champion, slotting in ahead of Nathan van Hooydonk, so totally accepting of the fact that he and Romain Bardet will sit on, at least for a while, before the whip is cracked and they're made to get on with things. However, they are now getting some company, because here comes Group 2 coming up. I'm just watching the tail end of that, though, Brian, to see whether that is Group 2 or whether it's actually what we're now calling the peloton.
No, this is the peloton. That kind of broke down a little bit, but 7 riders just kind of chipped off the front there. Nelson Paulus was the rider from EF Education, Easy Post, so it's coming back together. This is a group containing the likes of Ivan Garcia Cortina, Jon Izagirre, but I think we won't see any riding from the likes of Nathan van Hooydonk or Romain Bardet. They have been in the break pretty much all day, but good to see Vlasov here for Bora Hansgrohe, the Russian rider at the front here. They're all riding. Betio for EF Education, Easy Post, former winner of the Ron van Vlaanderen, and also Betio, stage winner in the recent Tour de France, but the world champion, you know, in prime place. You know, he wants to win this race. He wants to win it for the third time. I can remember in 2019 when he won it for the first time, and it was like, wow, you know, to go over a distance and over these climbs of 230 kilometres, because that was always the case when you get a young rider like that, just turning pro, coming to a big race like this is very difficult. And this is what I was saying just a moment ago. You've got Lysenko for Astana. They've kind of missed out. You're not going to do it on your own. Nelson Powell is just placing things, just sitting on the wheel, not doing anything. Lotto Destiny have got riders in there, but it needs more of a kind of concerted effort rather than just, you know, Lysenko going, and then you've got Israel Premier Tech going as well. The teams really in this case have to kind of talk together and try and kind of have a cohesive unit to go to the front. That looks as if that was Jakob Fuglsang. It was in that, it was coming to the front there. So there's a big enough group here, Jess, of about 30 riders. Okay, there's teammates of the riders that are in front, but the other teams that are here have to have a chat with each other and go, come on, the only way we're going to try and win this race, because this gap is going up to 45 seconds now, if we can just put our riders towards the front and try and do it in numbers, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And I think very shortly this gap is going to go over a minute.
Yeah. And what do you reckon, Brian? I'm trying to work out how many riders we've got there. Maybe 25, something like that, now in the lead of the race. Possibly slightly more, actually, if we watch them all strung out into one line. We've just seen Alexei Lysenko from the Astana Kazakhstan team on the front of that chasing group, but looking like, as Brian said, that there's not a great deal of impetus there. They need to be getting on with this, otherwise the winner is definitely going to come from this group. We still have to go back through the finish line, as mentioned, as we're nearly back down to the harbour now, up alongside the big main road there and the rail tracks heading towards the coast. And then don't forget we have that newly revisited climb of the Mendizorrots, which is pretty steep in its midsection as well. It goes up above 10% in the middle of it. It's not super long, but it's an extraordinarily useful launch pad for someone who likes to use that kind of thing to jump clear, or like maybe Remco Evenepoel. So welcome back those of you who've been away for a short break. Talking of breaks, we are looking at our 7 riders here with the motorbike right behind them, who are headed down towards the finish line. And they'll go through that finish line with 48 kilometres remaining, going in the wrong direction. So going across it, always slightly confusing for the likes of me. Going across it, going westward, following along the edge of the Bay of Biscay, and they head out towards this revisited loop to the southwest of Donostia, San Sebastian. A reminder to viewers that today and tomorrow we're effectively re-bringing you large elements of stages 1 and 2 of the Tour de France from this year, but the other way around. So we're bringing you the sort of stage 2 highlights, where we finished with Victor Lafay taking that fantastic late attacking stage win into San Sebastian today for the San Sebastian Classico, and then Brian and I will be bringing you the Circuito de Getxo, which starts outside the Guggenheim Museum, just as the Tour de France did this year. Tomorrow we'll be bringing you that one. That's a 1.1 UCI race, and we'll be revisiting some of those opening moments of the Basque start to this year's Tour de France. It was Brian, I was looking at the riders we expected to be here. In the last few days, understandably, quite a few of the big stars from the Tour de France have withdrawn and aren't starting here today. I wonder if that's because the Tour this year was so hard. What was your take on that? There was an awful lot of climbing and not too much easy days. Well, I can't think of any easy days.
Well, I think, I knew what you were going to ask me there, and I think I have to agree with you. It's, such a grueling Tour de France that, very few riders, decided that, they wanted to come to this one. This is not an easy race whatsoever. Normally, if you have a good Tour de France and come out the Tour de France with good legs, this is a perfect race for you. But I think in the last few years, it's shown, especially with this man here, that if you come into this and you're preparing for the Vuelta and you've got good legs, then you can do really well. Good to see Ben Healy in that group. He recently, found second place in the race only a matter of days ago. Still got some good form that he had from the Giro d'Italia earlier on this year. but he's kind of stuck in that group behind because, you know, Betio, the man in the pink, is here. So there's a couple of riders, Paulus and Ben Healy, in that group behind. It's always a difficult one. This went at probably one of the hardest parts of the race today, when Evenepoel went on the attack and he was joined by Vlasov, Betio and Bilbao. It just goes to show you the credentials of the riders that were able to go. If you had the legs, that was the time to go. You know, I don't think Remco was always going to go on the attack. He wants to win this one solo. You know, when he goes in the attack, you have to go with him and not kind of try and kind of chase him down. And unfortunately for the group behind, you know, this gap continues to go up second by second, and it's going to be very difficult. If there's a concerted effort here on the kind of flatter parts in the run up to the next climb, then you can bring this gap down. But from what we're seeing, Jez, as we're running into San Sebastian now, that there's no real concerted effort from the teams that have missed out.
I'm a bit tired now after the tour, I have to say. Yeah, it was quite busy the last few days, so I'm not sure how I will feel today. But the last stages of the tour, I felt pretty good, so I hope my shape is still there. And if I have good legs, then I think this race today, it suits me.
After your win in the tour, how's the feeling?
Yeah, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think the last days, I know I kept it easy, not much training. I did one criterium, so to have some intensity as well. But I focused on recovery. But yeah, I'm still a little bit tired, and we will see.
Where do you think that the race is going to be nuts today?
Well, it's my first time, so I'm not 100% sure what to expect. But it's a very long day, and I think it will be, normally it should be controlled, and then it just gets faster and faster, and people are getting dropped. And yeah, if it's such a long race, I think it's then just in the end, yeah, if you have good legs, you are there. If you don't, then you're not.
For riders like you, it's easy. You go full gas since the start.
No, at the start for sure not. I will see how I will feel, and then yeah, in the final I think then those climbs they suit me, and then we will see.
Good luck.
Well, Felix Gall there, the Austrian. Well, we wouldn't have been interviewing him 1 year ago, but he's had such an incredible year this year. Of course, topping it all off, getting that Queen's Stage win to Courchevel in the Tour de France, the Austrian, and understandably being tipped for big things today. We can see the white jerseys of Agida Citroën back there. He has the Domestique Deluxe of Ben O'Connor set to work for him potentially today as well, or maybe Ben O'Connor will be ready to take the spoils of some of the results of a full Tour de France in his legs as well. Of course, he finished on 17th place on general classification, the Australian. So a very strong team for Agida Citroën team. They've already had Franck Bonnamour in the breakaway today. And there is Juan Ayuso, one of those that a lot of people are picking as a big favourite today. He's still got some ice down the back of his neck there. As Brian mentioned, we did talk a little bit about the Prueba Villafranca, which was the UCI 1.1 race on Tuesday of this week, which, being a big Spanish race, was a useful tipper to this, because a lot of the riders who are riding today were riding the Villafranca. Juan Ayuso nearly won that race. It was in hammering rain, and coming into the finish in Ordizia, he was in the lead, going around a left-hander on a kind of a very wet, painted crossing, wiped out, got back up again and went on to finish third. But he was overtaken by his own teammate, of course, Mark Hirschi, who was in company of Ben Healy. Those two were in the lead of that race come the finish. Hirschi taking the win ahead of Healy, and Juan Ayuso in third. So we know Ayuso is in very good form. 1 year ago, he actually pulled out of this race, retired early, and went on to win the following day, the Circuito de Getxco that I've been talking about, that Brian and I are bringing viewers here at the Home of Cycling tomorrow. So Ayuso chilling at the back there with an ice pack down the back of his neck. It's about 25, 26 degrees. Not overly bright sunshine now. It's clouded up a little bit in the Basque Country, up on the edge of the Bay of Biscay here. But kind of ideal racing conditions. It could have been a lot hotter, bearing in mind how hot it's been in the southern part of Europe the last couple of weeks, Brian. It's been absolutely cooking, hasn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I think you know, looking at some of the news coming from Greece and things like that, and you know, we'd some friends over there as well. You know, wasn't the kind of perfect holiday, but yeah, it's been blazing temperatures. Just looking at, you know, the chasing group here, there's some strong riders in here. You're looking at George Bennett here now, so just sitting at the back here. I think they have to be hoping for a miracle. Kern Farmer trying to do something, but just look behind. You've got Nelson Powless just closing it down. Van Sevenant there as well. Felix Gall was there, but if he had the legs, he would have already been in that group in front. But so many riders are just, you know, kind of following, and I think the teammates of the riders out in front are doing a very good job now in shutting things down. Israel Premier Tech with Jakub Fulsang is there. A couple other teammates from Remco Evenepoel, but just look, nobody really wants to take it on. DSM trying to go on the attack here, Bardet's in front, and I did say, you know, it won't be long until it goes over a minute, and you know, we're already at 56, 57 seconds.
Yeah, and this is such a quality leading group. Just to remind people who is here, we're looking at Remco Evenepoel on the front in the white skin suit of the world champion, and at the back, as there has been since they've been joined, Nathan van Hooijdonk and Romain Bardet, the two remaining riders in the black and yellow from our day-long breakaway, and they're in the company of Alberto Bettiol in the pink, the former Ronde van Vlaanderen and the Tour of Flanders winner, as Brian mentioned, the Italian. And they have with them the Russian rider Alexander Vlasov of Bora Hansgrohe and Tour de France stage winner Pello Bilbao, one of those three riders from Bahrain Victorious who took really emotional stage wins at this year's Tour de France. Pello Bilbao in particular, actually, obviously still using his form really well. Just as we were saying a year ago, I think coming into this race, Brian, certainly I was wondering what Remco Evenepoel's form would be like. He'd been away on a long summer training camp while the Tour de France was on. And I think long-term logic has dictated that if you come into this with good form from the Tour de France, you'll be flying. Well, he just came into it from an altitude camp last year and absolutely ripped everyone's legs off. It doesn't look too different this year either. He seems to respond really well to longer periods of training at altitude. And he certainly looks in fine form. Of course, that triple that we've been talking about since the beginning is in a different order this year, because this is the first year where we've gone back to having a world championship in the summer, as it always used to be. We're approaching the finish line here, by the way. And he'll have to go San Sebastian, Worlds, and then Vuelta. He did all three and won all three last year. It's a different order this year. I wonder, it almost seems an even more perfect build-up to the World Championships, this, Brian. That kind of stepping stone between good Tour de France form, a nice test after a week, and then bang, you're into the men's road race a week tomorrow. Could that be the perfect stepping stone for someone who's come out of the Tour with good form?
I think so. I think, you know, the riders that have done the Tour de France possibly would have been in the driving seats for the World Championships. It seems to kind of happen that way, but you know, the form that Evenepoel is showing at the moment in this race, and let's see what happens in the kind of final 48 kilometres. But you know, I can't see anybody from the group behind coming back to this group, so I do believe that the winner is going to come from the front. And Evenepoel, I think, has already shown he's probably the strongest today. But like I was saying before, if it rains in Glasgow, it's a lottery. If it doesn't rain, it's a miracle. And the course there is a bit more like a criterium course than anything. There's so many lefts and rights, and you know, I've been at that race when it was the British Championships, covered it for the Commonwealth Games, you know, the Europeans, and you just don't get any rest whatsoever. It's not one of these races that you can just sit back, and I think if Evenepoel gets himself, you know, out the front, very difficult to get an organised chase behind. But you know, Wout van Aert is again that desperate to kind of try and win. There's a few other riders that are going to be favourites for this one in Glasgow. Very different time of year as well, of course, but no matter what, it's going to be exciting. You've got so many disciplines up there. You know, it's the first time. It's like the cycling Olympics all in one, and it's going to be a great atmosphere.
So Lidl Trek. I very nearly used the coffee machine S word there, but I won't. Lidl Trek in their still quite new kit have been put to work on the front. Poor old Julien Bernard, having been in the breakaway all day, has been set back on the front to do a bit of work. And it's an interesting one, Brian. I'm just thinking about who they're working for, because of course they have a former winner in this race in Bauke Mollema. I didn't see whether he's in that group. He was fourth last year, of course, at the age of 35. I'm presuming he's there, and that might be who they're thinking of today. Lots of people down on the beach here in San Sebastian enjoying the lightly cloud-speckled sunshine and missing the passage of our leading group of 6 riders as they go through. They now have 1 minute 15 seconds, as you can see, and despite the hard work, this is Bauke Mollema on the front, isn't it, by the looks of it?
Yep. Actually, I was just about to say, as you were saying about Lidl Trek there, having 3 riders not being represented. I think it was Tom Squinch. It was the 3rd rider of the Lidl Trek team, but Jose Ben just gave me, I was commentating Wallonie, and we're talking about, the race coming up here, and she actually mentioned that, and I didn't know this factoid, that Mollema has ridden this race 10 times and never been outside the top 10.
It is remarkable, isn't it? It just really suits his characteristics. And it was a brilliant ride by him last year in 4th place. He was in that chasing group yesterday that in the end had absolutely no chance of catching Remco Evenepoel, but he was in amongst Pavel Sivakov, Tej Benoot, Carlos Rodriguez, who is a good, 12 or so years younger than than Bauke Mollema. Haven't seen anything of Rodriguez today. I'm just checking my start list to make sure he did start. Yes, he did. 5th in the Tour de France, of course. I haven't really noticed any of the Ineos Grenadiers jerseys in that chasing group, Brian. We'll have a little look, maybe. I don't know if you have.
I think there was one that I picked out. One, and it was still to pick out, who exactly is in this group, but a very small group chasing. Mollema trying to come back. It's going to be very difficult to keep that record up and get another top 10 performance here. But Lidl Trek, after being in a breakaway pretty much all day, Julien Bernard, he's been asked to go to the front again and chase down the breakaway that is at the moment with Evenepoel, Vlasov, Bardet, Bettiol, Bilbao, Van Hooydonk. And you can see that the team cars have been moved up there, so it does look as if, with 120 plus on this chasing group, that's the lead is going to come, or the win is going to come from the leading group of 6. It's going to be very difficult, of course, for Van Hooydonk and Bardet, because they've been in the breakaway all day. So it's just a question of when is Evenepoel going to make his move.
Yes, they're now riding away from the bay, going slightly further inland, back into built-up terrain here for the chance for the crowd to see them on at least a couple of occasions, in fact. And they're riding towards a nasty climb. You are looking at a Movistar and Lidl Trek headed chasing group here. I think we can probably call this the peloton now, because it is the remnants of the peloton that's been left after the ascents of the Heiskibel and the Erleitz. Remco Evenepoel, I thought there would come a point where Evenepoel might start looking to Nathan Van Hooydonk and Romain Bardet maybe to start doing a little bit of work. I think he might have had a word there, Brian. He's been helpfully pushed through by Van Hooydonk.
Well, there was a moment just before there, I think it was the Bahrain Victorious car came past them at a fair speed, and I think Evenepoel wasn't really happy. So I think with Evenepoel in this kind of state of mind, I think the next climb is when he's going to make his move. Of course, he's just going to get pushed in there. Looking at the fact that the 4 riders have caught Bardet and Van Hooydonk, and none of them are really too bothered about the 2 riders at the back, because the riders in front of both of them have had an easier ride, kind of fresher legs, but Remco definitely looks pretty much up for this, getting annoyed at a car passing at speed there. So I think he won't mess around. he'll want to test himself out. He wants to win this again. We heard from his interview that he's here to win it again. It suits him, just like Bastogne-Liège. His 2 favourite races that, you know, suit his credentials, and I think he'll make a move in this climb.
There it is, the Mendizorrots, and as you can see, there's one section there where it goes well above 10% in the purple, about a third of the way up, levels out a little bit nicely towards the top, and they're climbing up into slightly murkier conditions as well as they climb away from the bay. They go over it in 2 different directions, it needs to be said, because the Murguil is actually the other side of this climb as well. So over the Mendizorrots going out westward, and then they come back and climb in the opposite direction over the Murguil, but they're effectively the same ridge of hills to the southwest of San Sebastian. It's the same ridge that if the bay that San Sebastian is built on wasn't there, they would effectively link up with the same ridge of hills that become the Heiskibel as well. But I guess over probably many hundreds, if not thousands of years, that bay has been eaten away as the seas from the Bay of Biscay have lashed in amongst it. And here we are now, a little bit close to the front end of this chasing group, and Alberto Bettiol in the pink on the front. Only 2 of these riders, Brian, worth noting this, I guess, only 2 of the riders in here, Vlasov and Evenepoel, did not ride the Tour de France. They didn't all finish it, but they do all have that in their legs. I say that, actually, I think maybe they did all finish it. I'm just thinking, yes. Yes, they did. So 3 weeks of hard racing in their legs. And as I say, good to see Alexander Vlasov back after... I think the last we saw of him would have been in the Giro. I have to check whether he did anything after that. But certainly pulled out of the Giro with COVID-19, one of course, a large number of riders that did. Did we just get through the whole Tour de France without any COVID positives, Brian? I think we did. I don't remember any, which in itself is kind of remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's not going to go away.
No.
And... you know, in the Giro d'Italia, just like you mentioned there, we had a few withdrawals. But yeah, everybody got through the Tour de France, apparently, you know, well. Long may that continue.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment, Brian, wholeheartedly, that it is only time, a small matter of time perhaps, before we see Remco Evenepoel try and get clear of this group. He's been doing long turns on the front as well, which is no doubt a large part of the reason why they still have a minute and a quarter over this chasing group. But I can't believe he's going to hang around too much longer, and this climb is absolutely perfect for him, isn't it?
Yeah, both of the next climbs, but I think he'll test in this one. But you know, we're just looking back there. I've seen the white jerseys of AG2R Citroën. I think they've got 3. They've got 2 up towards the front. But that's a team that's just sitting back looking for, you know, what they can get out of this race. They're not trying to win the race because I think they realise that, you know, the riders in front are stronger. But it does look as if what they're trying to do is get, you know, their best possible place. Because let's be honest here, you know, there's some decent points up for grabs in these events, and you know, already we're seeing teams doing that. If they were trying to win the race, then they would have put one rider up to help with Movistar and potentially to help with Lido Trek as well. But you know, this is what we're going to see now, next year and the year after, is some teams will trying to get what they can out here. And when I'm talking about points, because if they were trying to win the race with 3 riders in this chase group, then you would sacrifice at least one of them, and they haven't done any work whatsoever.
You would have to go and raise points, wouldn't you, Brian Smith? I've managed to go at least a few races without actually talking about UCI points. It's been quite nice this year to calm down a little bit. Now we're through that UCI cycle. Of course, for the women's teams, this is their sort-out year in terms of the level the teams find themselves out this year. It's their first time through this cycle. It's been nice this year not to think about it too much. So Remco Evenepoel, I should say, laying it on a little bit here. I'm just looking down that group to see if there's any gaps open up. Van Hooydonk doesn't look great at the back, Brian, does he? He's gone.
Yeah, it was all going to be a case. How long can Bardet hang on for as well? You know, this is just a Remco Evenepoel kind of, he's looking at ease here, but you know, he's applying the pressure. Bardet could be the next one in difficulty. This is not easy. It looks easy if you look at the face of Evenepoel, but it isn't. We've just gone over some of the kind of steeper gradients, but the pressure is being applied. It's not a full-hearted attack that we've seen in the past, but definitely there is pressure on at the front of the race, and Evenepoel looks as if he's out for a Sunday run.
Absolutely. Ice cold. Bardet gone for the moment, at least. They have quite a long descent off the back of it, and then a really elongated valley road, which is quite flat off the bottom of this as well. They've got quite a long section, about 20 kilometres after this climb before the next one. Felix Gall has gone, though. He's going to try and use the climb to see if he can jump across some kind of gap. 1 minute, we're being told. 1 minute and 7 seconds now.
Right, there's a question. I've just raised it before about AG Citroën trying to win this race. That's not the way to do it. Why didn't he sacrifice one teammate and have this gap at 40 seconds rather than over a minute? Why were they all sitting back? Felix Gall, I'll give you it now, is not going to cross this gap on his own. No way is he going to cross it on his own. So, you know, one rider was trying to kind of go with him there, but this is just, when I look at, you know, some of the team's tactics, I scratch my head. He's got Thijs Benoot with him. It looks as if he's got one rider from Soudal. Just can't see him there, just behind. But they're not going to get across. They've sat back. They've had 3 riders in this shoot. Sat back and thought, right, we're going to wait till the next climb. You've got to remember, this group in front formed at the top of one of the hardest climbs in the race today. So thinking that you're going to go across to them on your own, it's never going to happen. So yeah, Felix Gall with a couple other riders now trying to come across. Big hard effort here, but yeah, Bettiol starting to suffer a little bit. Bilbao kind of hanging a bit, but definitely Evenepoel looking easy.
I have to say, Brian, I was very close a few moments ago to saying that Alberto Bettiol looked great. He doesn't look quite so good now, though. You can crack quite quickly on these steep ascents, and you can see him really gritting his teeth just to try and stay with this group.
Yeah, look, Remco Evenepoel's led from the bottom to the top here, pretty much. Even Bilbao's feeling the pressure here. You know, the commissaire doing the right thing and telling the TV motorbike to get out the way. You know, there has been a lot of this over the last few years, not just the last few months and weeks regarding this stuff. So
1 minute 20 to the peloton behind you.
Getting too close, but Evenepoel looking quite easy. Bettiol starting to suffer, whether he can recover and come back. Vlasov just kind of hanging in there, and so is Bilbao. But you know, they're all under pressure here from a world champion. We're just also hearing it's 120 back to Felix Gall, and I think it's Pagioli and Thijs Benoot. But yeah, questionable tactics from AG2R Citroën. Why didn't they put at least one rider up to bring the gap down? Then they would have stood a chance, but trying to go across in a steep climb like this with the likes of Evenepoel pushing hard in the front, never going to happen. Pagioli just kind of dropping back here. Benoot starting to struggle a little bit, but Felix Gall showing that maybe he was out of position, maybe he never had the legs when Evenepoel went in the previous climb. But definitely, I don't think he's got the legs to cross the gap.
Brian, this is Juan Ayuso at the back. I was about to say, where is he? He looks like he's swinging a bit, and it looks like he's also got Carlos Rodriguez alongside him. 2 big favourites for the race in the last group of that chasing group. Ayuso shaking his head there on the right-hand side, the UAE man, and Carlos Rodriguez to his left, Tour de France stage winner, of course.
Yeah, not looking good for both of them. I thought Rodriguez had a great Tour de France in his debut. But this man here is well in control. I think if Spain want to win this race today, it's going to have to come from Bilbao, who seems to be just trying to hang on. So, you know, we've gone from a breakaway originally of 5 riders. Pretty much the attacking started in the Ascabel, but now we're on to the penultimate climb. Bilbao starting to lose the wheel a little bit at the back, but Evenepoel, he just looks so cool.
That'll be the white skin suit. 40 kilometres to go, under 40k to go. He's nearly at the top of this penultimate climb, the Mendizorroz, and it's certainly done plenty of damage. It's enlivened things behind, given those behind a little bit of hope in terms of jumping across a gap, but they're smashed to pieces now. Alberto Bettiol is back there somewhere. Pale Bilbao is hanging on to the back of this. And Alexander Vlasov, it has to be said, Brian, looks good. I looked it up and he hasn't raced since the Giro d'Italia. He's shaking his head, though. He's not going to help him out at all, is he? And why would you? Why would you when Remco Evenepoel's going as well as this?
Yeah, Evenepoel was going to let a train up there, and I think Vlasov was just like, oh, glad I got to the top there, blowing the cheeks out from Bilbao. But at this stage, now that Bettiol has dropped back a little bit now, it might give Ben Healy or Nelson Paulus that chance. Maybe as to get over the top and the information comes back, because they definitely had some numbers in this group, and because Bettiol was in front, they didn't chase. But yeah, Felix Gall showing that he's a quality bike rider, and you know, world class, winning that stage in the Tour, fantastic, coming over. But on your own, over a minute behind some of the strongest bike riders in the world. It's tactically from AG2R Citroën wasn't good at all in my book today. But they'll still get a good result at the end of the day. And if that's what they're riding for, fine. But if they're trying to win the race today, then they should have committed to at least one rider in the flatter part before this time.
One of the Bahrain victorious riders, I think, has just gone in pursuit of Felix Gall. I couldn't quite see who it is, but definitely looked like one of their jerseys.
That's Paulus at the back there, so he's kind of struggling with Ayuso and Rodriguez just in front of him. Be interesting to see where Ben Healy is, because he's been starting to show some good form.
Yes, he has. We also saw Mark Hershey there, winner ahead of Ben Healy in the week at the Paribas Villafranca. Saw him near the front, and for the first time in a while we see someone else on the front, and it's Pello Bilbao. Bahrain victorious.
Yeah, they go over the steeper part, didn't they, Jess, and puff of the cheeks from Bilbao. But again, I think it would just be the strength he'll get from the Tour de France, that he'll have the old kind of diesel legs, the strength. Steep parts just were hurting a little bit, but now we're on the kind of easier slopes. Still a kilometre to go to the top. Vlasov just pedalling away there in the point of the saddle. I think Bilbao looks a little bit easier. He's kind of sat back in the saddle, but I have to say that Remco Evenepoel looks super.
There you go. It was Mikel Landa. I thought it was the colours of Bahrain victorious trying to come across. Another man who's got a Tour de France in his legs, finishing 19th on general classification. Landa, after a pretty anonymous Tour de France, it has to be said, but he is very good at doing that kind of thing, hiding away in the leading groups or the second groups on the road, in the mountains in particular. He picks up a bottle and he finds himself in good company here alongside well, I think it's Nathan van Hooydonk coming back by the looks of it. And he continues his ascent on the Mendizorroz. I did say it was going to get a little bit more murky up here, and it certainly is getting cloudier as well. But Mikel Landa on the move. Sitting here behind Carlos Rodriguez and
George Bennett.
George Bennett, thank you.
Yeah, this is the kind of back of the group now. This looks like a very tired Carlos Rodriguez. Last year winning the Spanish Championship at a young age. Very good Tour de France, but this has caused a lot of difficulty. This is what's kind of left of that kind of group, about 30 odds. You've got Gall and Landa just in front. You've got another kind of couple of riders just in front of, I think that's Bardet, that's just about to be caught. But yeah, it's just kind of ones and twos. No real effort here, or no real teams with big numbers. And this look as if it's going to be the 1, 2, 3, but in what way? I think you can't discount Bilbao, but in a way that Evenepoel rode up that climb there, you have to think that he will be the favourite. But for me, these are the three strongest bike riders in the race, and this should be our podium. But in what, who's going to finish first, second and third, we'll have to kind of wait and see.
I cannot see it coming down to a sprint, though. I'm absolutely certain that, there's certainly no evidence there. I don't know whether, Brian, whether you think Remco was going to see if he would go solo by putting in that big effort, or by his standards, medium to hard effort on the slopes there of that climb. It didn't detach everyone, but if it comes down to a sprint, I would say that Pello Bilbao stands a very, very good chance from a group like this. We know what he's like as a fast finisher from a leading group after a hard day out.
Well, I said that, and I think it was it Norway when I think Evenepoel won his first sprint. Look, at the end of the day, it comes down to what you got left in the legs, and from the way that Evenepoel rides, he prefers to be alone. He prefers to be out there. He prefers to go from distance. He gets a little bit annoyed when people aren't giving as much as he does, and that's something that he's had to mature in the last kind of year or so. That not everybody's as good as him, and sometimes they can't give you a turn when you want them to give you a turn, and sometimes you have to do that a little bit more in the breakaway than others. You know, you are the world champion, so I think he's getting there slowly, but we've seen races in the past that he gets a little bit frustrated if someone doesn't commit as much as he's committing, and that's just somebody that's just kind of learning, and he's still young, you got to remember, and he's still learning the way, and I think he's maturing quickly now.
So with 35 kilometres to go, we're now into the first of two quite testing descents as well. The first one is still heading away from San Sebastian, going southwestward, coastward down to Zanca, where it meets the river valley, where it comes in through from the Bay of Biscay. It follows the river valley, snaking its way left and right until we hit the flatlands, which then head northeastward and back towards Donostia, San Sebastian, and that final climb of the Murgil, which has been the traditional final climb of this race for a long time. It is a very useful late launch pad. I guess it just depends whether the likes of Remco Evenepoel are going to wait that long. And I guess, Brian, the other thing to think about, maybe if you were one of those other two riders in that leading group, Pello Bilbao or Alexander Vlasov, do they wait? Do they wait for Remco Evenepoel to do it, or do they do an Evenepoel on Evenepoel and try and attack him early? Now, I'm not thinking that's going to happen, but should I be expecting that?
It's definitely a good question. If you're in this breakaway with Evenepoel and what he's done, what you've just witnessed, you realise that you're going to be up against it, and you know he's going to be strongest in the final climb. But if I was both of them, you can go on the attack, but then again, if Vlasov goes, Remco is going to ride, and Bilbao's going to be riding. So you don't. It's not as if Bilbao can turn around to Vlasov and the other way around and says, "Look, if you don't chase me, I won't chase you." And you know we can try and kind of work Remco Evenepoel over. I've been in a similar situation in the past. Had a pact with another rider, but I don't think we're going to see this here. We've got three separate teams all trying to win it. And I think by trying to win it, it'll be a case of saving that little bit of energy, trying to stay with Evenepoel over the final climb, and who knows, Vlasov could maybe try something in the descent to run in towards the finish. Bilbao, like you say, is probably the quickest of the three here in the sprint final, and he'll be hoping to kind of hang on and go for the sprint. So I think if I was either Vlasov or Bilbao, it would be a case of, you know, do your turn, don't upset, you know, Remco. You've got 130 in the group behind, but just do your turn, save that little bit, and try and stay with Evenepoel on the final climb, because if you stay with him over the top of that climb, then you're in with a chance of a win. If he goes alone, then it's going to be very difficult. If you try and attack before then, I don't think you're going to get away from him.
I think Alberto Bettiol might still be stuck ahead of this group in between these two and the Evenepoel group. And if he is, Brian, I guess there's an opportunity then for them to hoover him up. Let's look at the gaps on the road. Well, it's not big, is it, between that chasing group there and the three who are ahead of them as we look a lot further up the road over the top of the climb, of course, and already on the descent. It was nice to see on that descent, by the way. I mentioned how twisty and technical these two descents are that we have yet to come. The first one off the back of the Mendizorroz here, Brian. Nice to see some padding out on the corners as well. It is something we're increasingly seeing more and more often, I'm pleased to say, although it cannot be easy for race organisers to have to do that.
No, it is attention to detail, and I think every big race has to be looked at. Of course, we're in open roads. You know, I spent almost 10 years living in Isle of Man where they had the TT races, and, you know, watching some of that, when they're risking everything at, you know, much higher speeds, and there's brick walls there. You hit one of those brick walls or get it slightly wrong, that's it. So, you know, we have to take everything into consideration, and looking at descents like this, you cannot put, you know, bales up, and even in this corner here, you can't put stuff up, you know, Armco barrier there, and, you know, this corner they've put some markings on there. We're in open roads, and unfortunately if you go off the roads in either left or right in a descent like this, then you risk a lot. So you can't barrier everything, and you can't pad everything. It's just, but they do need people to kind of look at these courses and You know, I'm not saying it has to be kind of Joe Carriageway racing from now on. You know, all the riders like racing in these type of roads, and they want it as safe as possible, and that's all you ask. If the race organisers can look at the route and make it as safe as possible.
Well, you can see just how fast it is. Remco Evenepoel leading down here, followed by Alexander Vlasov, who possibly looks a little bit less confident than the other two. Pello Bilbao just hanging back a little bit and watching the wheels ahead of him, closing up a little bit up of each of these corners. Yes, viewers who remember watching the race back in, what year would it have been? 2021, the year when Nilsson Paulus won. Not quite as testing a finale as this, of course, but we still had that long descent off the end of the Mergil as well. And viewers may well remember, by that point, of course, Nilsson Paulus had already gone clear and was leading by himself. And we had a crash of pretty much everyone on a wet corner in that chasing group that were going for second. I think the only one who managed to get through them was Matej Mohoric, of course, making the absolute most of that final descent. But Lorenzo Rota, Mikel Honoré, and I think it was Alessandro Covi who were down on the deck. They literally went sliding across the road. Matej Mohoric came through the middle of them and continued to take second. But yet another solo winner on that occasion, as we've had so many times in this race. Welcome along if you are joining us for the concluding stages of this, the 43rd edition of the Donostia Classico, the San Sebastian Classic, the return of the men's one-day world tour after the Tour de France. And we have a leading group that contains the man who is going for the outright record of 3 wins in the San Sebastian Classic. I say outright. He would be joining the first ever winner, the 1981 winner of the San Sebastian Classic, Marino Lejarreta, who has won the race on 3 occasions. He's the only rider to have won it on 3 occasions. He won it throughout the 1980s. And Remco Evenepoel is looking to join him at the top of the tree in this still very young classic race, the San Sebastian Classic. This is the chasing group now, quite well established as well. In there, Felix Gall, the Austrian, the tall man standing up on the pedals right now. And he's in the company of Alex Arambaru, the Spaniard for Movistar. They are about to be closed up too. Also in there, Rui Costa of Entomarché Circus in the yellow and blue. I think that might be Jakob Fulsang as well there.
Yeah, just on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
But it's Nathan van Hooijdonk. Trying to kind of set things up for Thijs Benoot for Jumbo-Visma. Mark Hirschi also involved there. There's a few riders. It looks as if George Bennett is now coming back to the fronts there, with Hirschi just in 3rd place there. So I did mention that UAE just weren't in the game today. Ayuso, I don't think, was feeling that good. But Hirschi, after that kind of win he had a few days ago, you know, they have to try and kind of do something. But just like the team of AG2R Citroën, just leaving it pretty much far too late. You know, the race win is in front. I think the podium's going to be there. We're saying this is the second group. We haven't seen the catch of Betty. I was just looking further down that group to see what kind of pink jerseys there are in there. But, you know, these are our 3 leaders. Evenepoel, like he was doing before, doing a lot of long, hard turns at the front. Bilbao looks as if he's okay. I think the weakest to me seems to be Vlasov for Bora Hansgrohe, but you know, I think what they have to do is just kind of work together. They're guaranteed a podium place here. It's a case of just trying to save that a little bit and trying to go with Evenepoel when he decides to go. And I'm not too sure if it'll be a big attack, Jess. I think he'll just try to kind of ride hard like he did in that previous climb.
He did mention in his pre-race interview yesterday on Friday afternoon that he's not quite. I think he said something like, "I'm just a few watts off where I was a year ago." I must admit, he did certainly so far, he's not quite looked quite as snappy as he did a year ago when he took off. And it was one of those attacks last year in this race when he took off with 44k to go, where you knew that was it. You know what I mean, Brian? When he goes, you think, nah, that's the end of the race right there. And so far, I've not seen anything for him, just in my humble and modest opinion, yet that's made him look outright like he's definitely going to win this. History says it will. Our understanding of his quality says he will. But here he is back at the team car.
Yeah, just looking at the group there behind, Nelson Powless was the rider, a former winner in the pink jersey for EF Education Easy Post, which means that I don't think Bettiol has been caught by that group. I think he will. It's going to be a hard ride if he tries to kind of hang on. You've got this group. It was about 30. I think you're talking about 20 odd riders now. I think they'll be chasing the minor places, 4th, 5th and so on. But some still quality riders in here, but can't see anybody getting on the podium apart from these 3 riders now.
No, they are now following the river as it winds its way inland, getting narrower and narrower, going southwestward, back inland effectively, away from the sea. But not for too long. They then start to turn away from the river and back towards San Sebastian. They have a little loop turning away again from San Sebastian to take in the final climb, which provides another testy descent off the back of it. That's the Mergil Tontora. They go over the top with 8 kilometres remaining, and it is effectively 8 kilometres spilling right the way, and they're down to the beach again. They'll ride along the edge of the beach and through the finish line. It's the same descent, in actual fact, where we saw the winner in this year's Tour de France take off, Victor Lafay.
I think, sorry, Joe, I think that's Bettiol just going out our picture at the top of the in the motorbikes. He's got a couple of motorbikes around him, so I think he'll be caught very soon. But yeah, we're starting to see a bit of an effort now. Too late, of course, from the likes of UAE and others starting to kind of ride a little bit. There's no way they're going to catch the 3 in front, so it'll be minor places for these guys. But let's see how this is going to play out, Jez. I think we're all thinking the same thing, and possibly so is Vlasov and Bilbao, that the world champion is going to try and ride us off the wheel in this final climb. But we've got a few kilometres to get there, and I think these riders have to think of, you know, the best way of winning, and the best way of winning is to help each other now, save that little bit of energy. That's why we're seeing a lot of them kind of taking drinks and, you know, gels and things like that. Try and stay with Evenepoel, because if they stay with them on this next climb, then they're in with a chance. If they get dropped, then I think it's going to be very difficult.
It's interesting. I wonder what's being said there to Alexander Vlasov. I don't know, maybe we'll never know. Brian, what would happen if... Go on, sorry, what do you think?
I think he's asking if he wants his team car.
Okay. Yes, because he might not have his team car there, I guess. Yeah.
Well, he took a bottle from Bahrain Victorious, just a blue one, just not that long ago. So I think he's just trying to kind of communicate and get his team car up now. It was maybe a case of he didn't know if his car was there, and he'd be kind of waiting for a long period of time. That's why he took another bottle from one of the other teams. So now I think the commissaire came up there and just said, do you want your team car up now? Because I think he may have been calling for it for a few kilometres.
We've just caught a glimpse of the River Oria off to their right. It'll be one of the last times we see it, because we actually start to climb a little bit as well as we make our way away from the river here. I know it's not going to happen, Brian, because they're rolling through at the moment. But what if these two, what if Vlasov and Bilbao would just literally just sit up and go on then, come on Remco, let's see what you got, because we know you're going to dispense with us anyway. Let's get on with it. What does Remco then do? Does he go to the front and start working anyway? Does he sit up and then they shed loads of time?
Well, there's a case of if you realise he's the strongest rider and you say to your rider, right, just sit on, start sitting on, then Remco will just get annoyed and start attacking. Then,
yeah, but what's wrong with that, though? That might be quite a good thing.
No, because exactly. That's Bettiol just been caught just on the left-hand side there in the pink jersey, so he's now back in the fold. Look, he can do that, but at the end of the day, do you really want to, secure a podium finish in this race? We're just rolling through this sprint. I don't think riders are worried about the sprint now, but you can't say to your rider just sit on, and you know, Remco comes to you and say, well, you know, why aren't you riding? He says team managers told him just to sit on. But it's a bold move to do that. You have to think that you've got something left in the legs to be able to beat this man, because by the looks of things in that last climb, he does seem to be the strongest. And I think the message would be going up, do your turn, but just try and stay with him in the climb, because if you stay with him in this next climb, you stand a chance. Especially this man here, Pello Bilbao. He's got a bit of a kick, probably the fastest of the three. So if he can just stay with them, there's no point in upsetting. I know they've got 2 minutes, but you don't really kind of want to be kind of wasting energy and start to kind of jump around. And that will happen if he starts sitting on Remco. He'll just pull to the side and then he'll try to attack. I think there was a race at the start of the year. There was attacks left and rights, and I think it was between Roglic, or was it Catalunya? Roglic and Remco Evenepoel, where they started trying to knock lumps out to each other. You put yourself in that situation, then you really kind of burn the legs, because that attack, stop-start attacking stuff really does hurt. It's better just to kind of roll through and try and kind of keep a bit of energy towards this final climb, because everybody knows that this is going to be crucial in this race, like it has done in the previous editions.
Let's see. Will the three of them get to the base of the Murgil together? They're going to get there with 10k to go. So we've still got about another 9 kilometres or so before they're on to the bottom of it. At the moment, as Brian has said, Pello Bilbao and Alexander Vlasov working pretty evenly. They are not hanging around. There's the speed. And the head of the race is said to be going a little bit slower than the chase. It has to be said, though, they're already on that slight climb away from the river now as well. So that might be why. I suspect the gap has continued to grow, Brian, hasn't it? 2 minutes and 11 seconds now. As you say, this is the podium we're looking at right now. It's how they stood out between them. Unless one of these guys capitulates completely, you can just see Remco Evenepoel actually having to coast a little bit there to save himself coming round the back wheel of Alexander Vlasov. He has not gone with 44k to go. He's still there now with 20k to go. And it's all yet to be played out between these three. As Brian has said, Pello Bilbao packs a very ferocious final sprint. An opportunity if he can hang on. Remco Evenepoel's also been taking on plenty of energy, Brian, as well. I think this is the second gel I've seen him have in the space of a few minutes. So either he's being very sensible, or he might be feeling he's flagging slightly. I don't know. It's a long day out. This is a 230 kilometre race in total, and we're well into that.
You know, it is psychological as well. That's, you know, everybody's human, and you have to look at this. In a race, you're always looking at the opposition, especially in a breakaway. You're looking for things that's, you know, not out the ordinary. And like you say, you flagged one up there that he's taken a couple of gels, one after another, and that would indicate that, you know, he's, you know, everybody's human after all. You do feel the effects of the race. Is it a guarantee that, you know, these is his last 2 gels?
So Remco situation, we have 10 k's for the 12 k's to the bottom of the climb, 1:45 to the first breakaway, 1:45 to the big bunch, jumbo away, control, one rider between Bettiol. You know what to do, you know the climb very well. And your 2 strong riders, Vlasov and Bilbao. Eh?
Yeah, I think that could have been about maybe 10 kilometres ago, that information at the time they've got it and come out. So that's information that maybe was maybe out of date at the moment. But I think that encouragement, he knows what to do. He's done it before. And I think it's a case of, you know, coincides with him starting to concentrate on the final. So maybe getting a couple of gels down in quick succession. Some people might think that he's, I wouldn't say panicking, but he's maybe feeling, right, we're coming up to the final, I'm going to start preparing. And for him to prepare, it's just a couple of quick gels down his neck, fully focused on what he has to do. By the sounds of things, he knows what to do. That knows what to do will be just ride up this climb as fast as you can, get rid of the other 2 riders and go solo to the end. That's what I would be saying, which as we all know, that he loves just being out there on his own. You know, he loves attacking, so he'll try and ride them off. And on the flip side, the other two riders will be thinking, well, I have to prepare. I know what's coming. There's no point kind of messing around and trying to attack before the climb, because the effort you make on the flat, you're going to pay for it on the climb. So it's a case of, can you hang on to the world champion? And if you do, then you've got a chance of winning.
It is funny, isn't it, Brian? I remember when Remco Evenepoel was ready to transition out of the juniors, we were hearing about this incredible junior rider who wins races solo by minutes by himself. And I can remember people saying, yeah, well, I mean, you know, he's not going to be doing that in the elite ranks, is he? You know, he's obviously a standout junior rider, but he's not going to keep that going in the elite ranks. Well, it has to be said on a number of occasions, including this time last year, they were wrong. He has kept it up. Welcome back, those of you who've been away on a short break. You're looking at shots here of a chasing group who must know by now they are battling for 4th place on the road. Alberto Bettiol is back in this group in the pink. And boy, is it a strong group as we look through it as well. Jonas Aguirre there, Alberto Bettiol, who's been fed back in, Felix Gall, lots of Tour de France stage winners in here. Carlos Rodriguez, one of them, of course, and Mark Hirschi in the Swiss National Champions jersey, although it's a slightly muted Swiss National Champions jersey there, a winner on Tuesday of this week as well in Spain. So we know he's in good form, and he's been up at the front of this chasing group a lot. I'm not sure George Bennett hasn't got a softening tyre though, Brian. He did a little look to the rest of the team and a bounce on the front of his bike as if to say, I think my tyre's going down. He's now might be looking back to see where the team car is possibly. I'm not sure he hasn't got a slow softy.
Well, they might feel punctures all in this group, and it's not just the tyres that they're riding. Maybe the legs have punctured a little bit, but the gap getting up to close to 3 minutes at this stage, there's no real point for anybody to ride a hard tempo behind. They're never going to catch these three riders. So the race is gone, the podium's gone. There is points up for grabs, and I think that'll be going through the mind of the teams behind, is just trying to get, you know, a couple of riders in the top 10, so kind of looking for that 4th and 5th place, and that's all they can get at the end of the day. I mentioned it in that previous climb, you know, just the tactics of AG2R Citroën, just, you know, woeful. Same could be said a little bit about UAE. Okay, I can be very critical and things like I say it as I see it as an ex-manager, but at the end of the day, you have to have the legs to deliver, and it looks as if, you know, when Remco went a couple of climbs ago, you had to have the legs to go with him, and 3 riders did. Bettiol was dropped in the previous climb there, leaving 2 of the other strongest riders in the breakaway. So you're not going to make up too much ground in these riders that are in front on the climb. You can, however, try and do it before we get to the climb. And a lot of riders were coming into San Sebastian for the first time, just didn't commit. And that's why I'm being a little bit critical about a couple of teams, because they didn't commit at the time when they should have. But the 3 leaders will, you know, battle it out for the first 3 places, but they'll be equally a battle behind as they start kind of challenging for the minor places that are left.
The chasing group just going through that roundabout on the right outer edge of San Sebastian itself. But they are nearly 3 minutes down on these 3. I keep wondering, Brian, when we're going to cut back to a shot of these 3 at the front and see the white skin suit going off up the road. It's going to happen at some point. Will it happen in snappy attacking fashion, or will it just be a kind of drilling down of this group and we see one of these 2 maybe lose the wheel of the world champion? Let's see, though. Either way, if one of the other 2 win, it's going to be a massive turn up for the books and a really big win for them too, ahead of Remco Evenepoel.
Yeah, we're talking up the world champion here. We're starting to get ever so closer to the final climb of this year's San Sebastian, and I think still for me the world champion is the man to beat. Going in the form on that kind of previous climb there, he just looks so strong, and I think it will be a case of just take it on from the front in the steepest part, and, you know, start to ride the others off the wheel, because at the end of the day, after pretty much 220 kilometres, it's what you've got left in the legs that counts.
Well, we mustn't forget that 5-kilometre descent off the back of the Murgil as well. And it wouldn't be the first time, as I've said, in recent history where we've seen riders on the deck going down there as well. So they will have to be careful. All three of them, as we've already seen today, love a fast, twisty descent and will look to use it to their advantage as well. So they will have to negotiate that, as will that chasing group as well, where there's riders who will look to try and use it at speed. Evenepoel, a brilliant descender. I have to say, probably of the three of these, I would have Peo Bilbao down as the best descender because he's a brilliant bike handler all round as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Probably the fastest and probably the better of the descenders. I think he's proven that in the past. So the last place where you can get rid of, all your wrappers and bottles and things like that before we start concentrating into the final of this race today will soon be going uphill, and that's why they're getting empty in their pockets.
I do always enjoy that, checking the pocket. Even Remco going, hang on, have I got everything out? Is there anything else in there? I think it's all out. He took 2 of those gels on. It does in a way, Brian, and you'll know this. It kind of shows how gels have evolved over time. I think if we go back 15, 20 years to the time when gels were probably first being used, they were so thick. I certainly wouldn't have dreamed of taking on 2 gels in quick succession. Otherwise, my stomach would be in all sorts of trouble. But most of these gels now are isotonic, aren't they? So it's really like a kind of a thick drink rather than that. Do you remember the original gels were so gloopy? It was like a paste. It was almost like a tube of toothpaste in your back pocket. It was horrific.
Yeah, the good old days. I was there. I was there even before we had any kind of nutrition.
So, yeah, you were taking a pie out of your back pocket, weren't you? Just chowing down on a pie or a haggis, warm haggis in the back pocket, maybe. Lovely.
That's just some grapes, some fig rolls, and a toffee apple and some candy floss if you're at the beach.
This sounds good. Hey, look, the sun's coming back out as well. We're nearly into the last 10K and we're on to the Murgil. When is it going to happen? Remco Evenepoel, everyone's massive favourite for this race, is sitting ready, but he has Peo Bilbao and Alexander Vlasov with him, both of whom are capable of winning this race. But we're just waiting for that moment when Evenepoel might take off. This is the end game. The closing stages of the 43rd edition of the San Sebastian Classico at 1 week, less than a week, 6 days, after the finish of the Tour de France. And the world champion is back. He's back at the start of this triplet of goals for him at the end of this season. The San Sebastian Classic, a race which he stated as being really important to him. And then in a week's time, the World Championship road race in Glasgow. And then after that, of course, his defence of the Vuelta España title that he won 1 year ago. He's on the front. Is he going to do what Brian said that he might, which is this gradual lifting? He looks like he's ramping it up a little bit, Brian. The elastic certainly hasn't snapped yet, but there's a fair amount of pressure being laid on.
Yeah, the steepest parts are still to come, and the thickest of the crowd is still to come. I tell you what, the Basque fans have had their value for money over the last month. We're going to see pretty much standing room only. On this climb, it's going to be, great atmosphere and, really, really noisy as the Basque fans get. But I think Remco is going to get to the front in the steepest parts of this climb. It's very, very shallow at this moment. It's just going up and down as we can clearly see, but soon we'll be on the kind of steeper points, and it goes up to 19%. I think everybody knows with the fans there, there's not much chance to come past anybody. So Remco will want to get to the front. As soon as it rears up, he'll just put the pressure on, and it's whether either of the two behind can stay with them, which is going to be very difficult. But you've got to give them a shot at this. We're just going to swinging right. It's one of these races. It's always in the sun. Then you come in here, and it gets rather dark under the trees, and then it kind of opens out as we get further up this climb, and the fans are just going nuts.
Yep, it's very quiet right now. It must be a wonderful place to be in amongst these three riders, I should say, when they go into these quieter parts of the race. So much attention and focus all around the world watching this on television, and they're climbing up into that thickening crowd, as you say, Brian. It's going to get thicker and deeper all the way up here. And all the while, we still wait for how Remco Evenepoel is going to try and take this on. Just dancing up through the middle between Peo Bilbao. Bilbao almost sitting back a little bit there as he sat down, allowing Remco Evenepoel to come up alongside him. Vlasov is looking like he's starting to tire a little bit more in there, but it's hard to tell. He's got a slightly ungainly style, Vlasov. Probably not the smoothest of those three. And you've got to wonder what the thinking is of this chase behind as well, as we watch Nathan van Hooijdonk on the front here. Brian, they must know they're racing for 4th place. 4th place in the San Sebastian Classic is still going to be a great result, but these three have flown the nest, well flown the nest.
Yeah, minor places for the group. You know, the race is here. This is the podium. Remco, as I thought, would want to take this one from the front. Commissaire trying to keep that motorbike well in front here. So let's see what he decides to do. I think it will just be waiting for the steepest part. You know, and he'll really put the pressure on and trying to leave the other two in his wake.
He's got about 1 kilometre left of the Murgil in total, and then that long descent off it as well. The longer he leaves it, Brian, the more chance there might be that we might have a sprint à trois at the finish back in San Sebastian. A sprint between those three, or a dicey finale. They've got the time to play around with if they wanted to, but it'd be certainly for Remco Evenepoel a slightly risky way of doing it.
Yeah, he preferred to go alone. He just flicked his elbows. The cameraman you know, moved to the front of the chasing group behind. I think we have to kind of concentrate on the three riders in front here. This is where the race is. So he flicked his elbow. I don't know if anybody gave him a turn, but, you know, does he want to you know, go behind and attack him from the back? I think he just does what he's doing. He has to realise that, you know, with the crowd at the top of this climb, I think he's just waiting to the steeper part and he's going to kind of ramp this one up. He has to. He's already shown in the previous climb how strong he is, but, you know, as I've said earlier, everybody's human. Everybody starts to kind of feel the pressure a little bit, feel the pain in the legs from what they've already done. But I think the way that Remco is riding now, he's just ever so gradually just making sure. But you're right, the further up the climb that Vlasov and Bilbao get, they start to get a little bit more confidence.
Just as a reminder, 5 kilometres of twisty descent off the top of this, and then 3 kilometres of flat back along the edge of the beach and back into town. He's lifted it a bit, Brian, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's definitely lifted it a bit.
Bilbao's gone.
Yep. How much
is he starting to lift it ever so slightly now, and Vlasov going as well now. So grit of the teeth for Bilbao. He knows if he can just get within touching distance, he has a chance. But this is a gentle, gradually ramping up of the pace here, and I think Vlasov is in his last legs as well.
Vlasov has just had a look round to see if Bilbao is still there. Bilbao looks like he's coming back to them a little bit. They are hanging on. Pello Bilbao is coming back just gradually, slowly, after that steeper section, back to the back wheel of Alexander Vlasov. This might still go down to the line, Brian, because detachment has not yet happened.
No, for Vlasov and Bilbao, it's about hanging on. Vlasov keeps on looking round to see if Bilbao's there, but it's just a case of hanging on to the world champion. If they manage to hang on, then they're in with a chance of winning. If Evenepoel manages to dislodge both of them out the back, then I think he's going to win this and going to solo down into San Sebastian on his own. But he just tried to ramp it up a little bit. The other two are starting to hang on, but we're getting towards some of the steepest parts of this climb now, and this is where you know, Evenepoel has to really keep the pressure on.
Bilbao trying to give it a go. That was a bit of a dig out the saddle. He jumped on the pedals there, and I think there's a sense of like, listen, we're not going to just let you take it from us. I'm going to have a go too. I hope this isn't where Pello Bilbao drops himself, because he's dropping Vlasov by doing this. He's come up alongside Remco Evenepoel. Evenepoel can see that Vlasov has gone. That was a wonderfully kind of offensive move by Pello Bilbao there. You can see how much it had taken out of him. Is he going to drop himself though? If he can hang on to the back wheel of Remco Evenepoel over the top, he stands a very good chance in the sprint. Vlasov is gone at this stage though.
Yeah, it's hurting everyone at the moment, and I think in the case, maybe as the crowd gets a little bit thicker, you know, try and get in front of you know, Remco Evenepoel before he does kind of, you know, put the pressure on. But Bilbao now just has to concentrate on that World Champs jersey, hang on. He doesn't have a long way to go, you know, within 360 metres now. If he can hang on, he's got a chance, and I think that's the best chance for Bilbao.
He is hanging on well. I don't know if I've read that incorrectly, Brian. It was, I wouldn't call it an attack, but it was a little bit of, well, look, I'm going to have a go too. We're not just going to wait for you as well. I was worried that he might have gone a bit too deep doing that, but hats off to him.
Yeah, Bilbao's hanging on for life here, and the fans are really behind him. Evenepoel is putting some pressure on here. He wants to try and get rid of Bilbao, but he can't do it. He's puffing and blowing himself a little bit. 200 metres, we're on the steepest parts now. Can Evenepoel get rid of Bilbao? Doesn't look as if he can at the moment, and Bilbao and Evenepoel look as if they could be coming over the top together.
This is a very, very good opportunity for Pello Bilbao. This is Tour de France form versus kind of fresh training camp form for Remco Evenepoel. Pello Bilbao having just finished the Tour de France with a stage win to his name, and that Bahrain victorious team. Here we go again. I think Bilbao wants to have another go. Yes, he is. He's using the motorbike, it has to be said, but he is not sitting back and just waiting for Remco Evenepoel to do his thing. What a ride by Pello Bilbao today. So popular with the fans, and you can see why.
Yeah, he's rising to the occasion, doesn't he? And he knows that he doesn't want Vlasov to come back up. That's the question now. Where is Vlasov, and can he come straight up? It was always a question of if they can hang on. Well, the question has been answered. One of them can, and that's Bilbao, and he was trying to come up. He was trying to put the pressure on. He looks behind. He realises that, having a chance of, podium, now the chances now are first and second. He knows that he's faster than Evenepoel. Evenepoel will know that. Evenepoel seems to be still the kind of strongest of the two, but Bilbao just wants to get down into San Sebastian. He wants to have a great chance at this, and the best chance is a two-up sprint against the world champion. And Bilbao looking as if, from struggling at the bottom of that climb, Jess, he looks as if he's in a very, very good position to be a home winner in this race.
What a wonderful opportunity. Just, I don't know if you saw that, just to the left of our shot there, a donkey, a big-eared donkey running as fast as it could off to the left of the riders, desperately trying to keep up with our two leaders, Pello Bilbao and Remco Evenepoel. The day started with a long five-man breakaway that has survived all the way to the Heiskebel after 137 kilometres, and there was then, on the next slope, the Erlight swallowed up by a leading group which was formed by Remco Evenepoel attacking. One of them who went with him was Pello Bilbao. The other was Vlasov, who looked really strong in chasing the gaps to get into that group. Alexander Vlasov, the Russian rider, is now distanced and stuck between these two and a very select, and I suspect even more select, chasing group now. We've stopped seeing it so much on our cameras, and we don't really need to, because the race is down to these two. They have about another 4 kilometres downhill now, and it's quite testy and sweepy on the way down as well. They then meet the coast road. They'll ride with the beach to the left, the sandy beach off to their left, as they come back into the finish, which saw Victor Lafay take his win in Stage 2 of this year's Tour de France. Brian Smith, I always do this to you. Which one of these two is going to win? Or is it going to be one of these two? Are we going to see Vlasov come over the top of them late on?
Heart or head. I'd love to see Bilbao win this one. I know that he's the quickest, but I still believe in Evenepoel to win this one. I know that I've been saying that Bilbao is the quicker of the riders, and it was kind of testament over the top what Bilbao would do, whether he would start to ride, because I think if Vlasov had come back, it just gives it a different perspective. It becomes a little bit more tactical, and they have about 3 minutes in the group behind, so there is opportunities, and if it becomes a bit more tactical, then it probably suits Vlasov or Bilbao. But for the moment, it does look as if we're going to see a two-up sprint here. Evenepoel still looks strong. I know that in the past, even in the younger days, that he never won anything in the sprints, but I think just the power will shine through a little bit. But the heart is saying Bilbao to win his home classic.
Another one of those tight, twisty corners as well. Thankfully, this year it is dry. Brian, this is an odd question maybe, but it's only been 5 full days since Pello Bilbao rode down the Champs-Élysées, finishing a 3-week stage race in the Tour de France. What does that give you that Remco Evenepoel doesn't have at the moment, despite his training camp? I'm just wondering.
Well, it's definitely got strength in the legs, and he's obviously looked after himself since then.
These are the final 4 kilometres. We've got about another 1 kilometre downhill, twisty and windy, to take us almost back into the heart of San Sebastian here, but we kiss the edge of that beach and we'll ride alongside it as the sunbathers look back over their towels to see these two ripping past. Will they still be together, though? Despite the fact they're on the descent, there is probably about 2 or 3 bike lengths between them, which is probably sensible on a technical descent like this. Pello Bilbao very capable of closing up that gap. In fact, just using his greater speed there to close up to Evenepoel, who has the sense just to warn his comrade here in the leading two to back off a little bit. Now the games have to start, Brian, surely. But where is Alexander Vlasov? I wonder what the gap is back to him and whether any games between these two might bring him back into play.
I don't think he will come back into play, and you can see that they put the commissaire car in there as well. They wouldn't have done that if it was less than 30 seconds. So you can see over the top of the climb there was a look behind, just a little bit concerned to see where Vlasov was. And both of them are going to ride all the way to the finish here. They want to guarantee first and second, but you know, who's going to be the top of the podium? That's the question. You would think that Bilbao, he would love the opportunity to win here. I still think that Evenepoel is looking quite sprightly, quite strong. So in 2.6 kilometres, we'll see who's going to be the winner. Very difficult one to call, this one.
Well, since the Tour de Suisse at the beginning of June, Remco Evenepoel has only raced twice. It was the individual time trial national championships where he was 4th, and then, of course, the road race championships where he was the winner. So in his last race, he was 1st, the Belgian national road race championships. Of course, were he not the world champion, he'd be wearing that Belgian champions jersey right now, something I know he's very proud of. He rolls through, not an attack, but a little lift of the power, just to make Pello Bilbao work a little bit harder. You can see how hard Bilbao's having to work just to get back onto the back wheel of Remco as he comes through. Remco's messing around with his head unit, as you would when you're 2 kilometres away from winning one of the biggest one-day races in the world. Checking his power, resetting things with 2K to go. I think he knows where he's going. It shouldn't be navigation. You just follow the edge of the beach here and you're straight in towards the finish line. They've got one tight left-hander and then a right-hander before they get to the finish line itself. So nothing too technical on these wide roads either.
This race director's car needs to push on a little bit at the front here and get out the way. But the crowds here, magnificent, just pushing on a little bit, that car. Both of them swapping turns. I think both of them knew that the top of that climb that this was going to come down to you know, the last kind of couple of 100 metres. And for the second time, Remco just tightens up his shoes a little bit. He's confident now of winning in a sprint. Bilbao, we know he's very capable of winning in a sprint. So this is going to be a close one.
That's the right-hander. Pello Bilbao leads. You have to say that Remco Evenepoel probably has him exactly where he wants him right now. Is Evenepoel going to wait for the sprint, though? He must know the pedigree of Pello Bilbao in a final sprint. It could be very close, though, after 230 kilometres of really tough racing. We've seen Pello Bilbao, as with everyone else, Vlasov and the others, really suffering on the climbs. Maybe, Brian, it's just that Remco Evenepoel doesn't show it as much. He has that strange mix of looking ice cold and a little bit cheesed off at the same time. He never looks that happy when he's riding well. But boy, does he look happy when he's winning. Is he about to do that, though? Now we have Pello Bilbao sitting second wheel. They're really watching each other, these two. We're inside the last, 600 metres now. Bilbao back on the front. Remco Evenepoel in the drops. Bilbao sticking to the hoods right now and swinging back across the road, looking to see where Evenepoel is. Now they've both gone for the drops. Once again, Remco Evenepoel swipes something on his computer. I don't know what these youngsters are up to. Now we back off. Now the games begin. Pello Bilbao knows that he's possibly not in the best position with Remco Evenepoel waiting to launch. And here we go, Evenepoel trying to come off the back wheel of Pello Bilbao. Paper says it should be very close between these two. Look at the form of Remco Evenepoel. This is going to be close on the line between these two. But Remco Evenepoel's going to get his 3rd. He equals the record of Marino Lejarreta with 3 wins in the San Sebastian Classic. And his opening round of his 3-round end-of-season bout, which includes the World Championships and the Vuelta, is complete. Alexander Vlasov will take a fine podium place in 3rd place as well, the Russian making his comeback. His first day of racing since the Giro d'Italia, where he withdrew with COVID-19, and he's looking good too. Watch out for him in the Worlds upcoming too. And there's going to be a big gap as we wait for the next group to come in, that's for sure. Well, 5.5 hours of racing have brought the result that so many have been predicting over the course of this week, with a Remco Evenepoel win, but possibly not quite in the way you might have expected. He did say in the pre-race press conference yesterday he was a few watts below where he would like to be at this time of year and where he was last year. Maybe that's where it showed that in the end it came down to a really fine sprint finish, Brian, didn't it?
Yeah, it was strength in the legs, a bit blatant in the sprint there. Evenepoel moved off my screen a little bit there and we were concentrating on Bilbao. But the world champion, I think it just came down to, as we expected, what you got left in the legs there. Great valiant effort from Bilbao to kind of hang on to the world champion, and I just think maybe in the wrong place, but I just think that Evenepoel was that little bit stronger on paper. Bilbao should have been the quickest, but you know, he'll take second place, very close to the win.
This is Nilsson Paulus. Looks like he has got clear of that group, so he'll be going for 4th place here, Paulus. A good ride by the EF Education Easy Post rider, former winner of this race, of course, back in 2021. Yes, so this is going to be a fine finish for him. Paulus working hard to stay clear. It does look like he's going to stay clear of Jon Izagirre. So that chasing group has split to pieces over the Murgil too. Izagirre's going to take 5th by the looks of it, and it's Mark Hershey at the front of that big group behind who are chasing for things. I think Jason Osborne's still in there too, which is a great ride by the German. For Alpes in de Koning. Nilsson Paulus, with enough space to get a camera motorbike in behind him too, is going to take 4th place. He became the first native American to win a race of this level back in 2021. And he goes to show again that once again this course here in the Basque Country really suits him. Jon Izagirre, fresh from the Tour de France, and his stage win there for Coppice, takes 5th, and this will be the battle for 6th.
Squinch.
Tom Squinch, as Ryan's pointed out there, taking, what was that, 5th or 6th now? 6th it would have been.
That was 6th.
And there he's in with a smile on his face. Is it just me, Brian? I know I made that comment about sometimes how Remco Evenepoel can look a little bit, how do we say this? Not angry, just a bit... Yeah, a bit upset and annoyed when he's got his glasses off anyway. He has that look about him. I don't know whether it scares people off, maybe, makes people think that he's about to take something out on them.
You know, early in his career, I just think that, you know, when he was racing, he showed that, you know, a little bit of arrogance, and that was him, you know, young rider. And I think at that stage he probably didn't know how good he really was. Okay, he was winning, but, you know, he's such a talented bike rider. You know, such a strong bike rider as well, and you know that's why he's the world champion. He just has to kind of mature into that, but you know he does expect a lot from the others as well. You know, I think he strives for perfection as well when he races. He wants everything to run smoothly, and gets annoyed when things don't go right. We've seen that in the past, that he shows a bit of disdain to, you know, fellow riders and commissaires and everything else, but. You know, I don't think you change anything. He's definitely a character, and you know, characters is what we need in our sport, and you know, it's well deserved in the end.
Well, we're just looking at live pictures here of the Tour de France Femmes as they head towards the Col du Tourmalet. As you can see, by the looks of it, most of the peloton are still together as well, if not all together. Oh no, we can see. For those of you who are on our Eurosport coverage, I think we're going to be leaving the San Sebastian Classic to bring you the Tour de France Femmes, and that will be Marty McDonald, Danny Christmas and Danny Rowe bringing you that. So do enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the closing stages of the Tour de France Femmes and the time trial, of course, tomorrow too. But for those of you who are leaving us, from myself, Jez Cox and Brian Smith, until the next time, bye-bye. Well, I hope imminently we should be able to bring you the post-race interview with Remco Evenepoel. I think it's happening just around about now, so we should be able to bring you that in just a moment and get his thoughts on taking what is I think it's very safe to say the first of 3 stepping stones, the next of which being a week tomorrow, the defence of his world title in Glasgow, as Brian said, on the Glasgow Criterium circuit, almost. The final closing stages, the laps around Glasgow being particularly technical next Sunday, and then of course onwards to the defence of his Vuelta title. He said in his pre-race press conference yesterday that he knows he's got a year of very hard work to do and I think this was a direct translation, to level up with Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar, to be able to face them at the Tour de France next year. He talked about being inspired and amazed by their performances in the Tour de France this year as he watched it on his training camp. And yeah, humbling, I guess, to hear him talk like that, to think about him, even him, and with the way kind of form we've seen him in today, talking about needing to make that big step up. So, should be able to bring you that interview in just a moment as we look at the top 10 there.
Mate, we're looking to go Remco Evenepoel. Congrats, Remco. It's your third victory in San Sebastian.
Apologies, folks. I think we're just struggling to bring you the sound of the interview. It should be coming in just a moment. There's the top 10 for you confirmed anyway. It was Tom Schoens, as Brian said, in 6th, ahead of Alex Arambaru, who had a quiet ride for Movistar, but he was the sole Movistar rider battling out at the front up there as well. Here is Remco Evenepoel.
See if there was a group joining me, and it was a super good group, actually. Perfect guys to join with Alberto, Peyo and Alexander. So perfect group. We rode super well together, I think. Perfect cooperation. And I took the rhythm on the Murgil. I put the hard rhythm, which I thought I could keep until till the top. And then I saw the last time only Peyo was with me, and I know he's fast, but I was actually a bit surprised with my sprint, because Peyo is one of the fastest climbers of the bunch, and I think I had still super good legs for a last sprint.
Third victory in San Sebastian, second win in a row. This race is very, very special for you.
Yes, I really love this race. The fans are amazing. But I have to say today, they were screaming a bit more for Peyo than for me on the climb. So, but I understand. I mean, it's a Basque rider, so it was super nice to race a final with him. And yeah, it's super good for the head and for the motivation to start the second part of the season, and also to go to Glasgow next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank
congrats.
you. Well, there we go. And he doesn't have long now. I guess that's kind of ideal preparation, I'd have thought, Brian. Ideal training. 1 week, well, just over a week to go until those World Championships. He certainly looks in very good form. Of course, start list still coming together for those World Road Race Championships a week tomorrow in Glasgow. But we know the kind of form he is now in. You don't wear a full white skin suit unless you're going to make it look special, as he did today. '46th professional victory as well for Remco Evenepoel today. And this is a time at which, for his team, Soudal Quickstep, things are really shifting in the direction fully now as being a general classification focused team. News coming this week that Fabio Jakobsen is set to leave Soudal Quickstep, and very strong rumours, of course, as there has been for a long time, Brian, that Julien Alaphilippe is also going to be leaving that team. Not yet confirmed, but suspected, and that won't be a great surprise to too many people. But that team is becoming now increasingly focused on general classification, and already thinking about that big battle in the Tour de France next year between Remco, Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar. He sees himself as one of those big three, but he was actually quite humble yesterday in saying he knows how much work he's got to do in the coming year in order to be able to challenge them. Well, those of you who are still with us on our digital coverage here, pretty certain we'll be able to bring you the podium presentations. You might even be able to grab a couple of interviews, hopefully, with Peyo Bilbao. Always good for a word after the race, and maybe even Alexander Vlasov as well, to hear their thoughts on the closing stages as it happened. Right, and I guess things are different for every rider. But in this week, after a big hit out like that, what sort of week would you expect a rider like Remco Evenepoel to have? Obviously, he's got to get his way towards the end of the week up to Scotland and be ready in Glasgow, possibly trying out a bit of that technical circuit that you've been talking about. But training and preparation-wise, what is there for a rider like him to do over the coming 6 days to be ready for a World Road Race Championship?
Well, I think he should be almost there. I think possibly Wednesday, Thursday. I think he'll have to do maybe after that performance today, maybe a kind of Tuesday. I think Thursday would be the kind of maybe big day for him. I used to do 3 days before the, a classic or the World Championships. I'd do a long ride, maybe a 6-hour ride with some intensity in the end. From that race there, he looks as if he's definitely got the strength. That Bilbao brought the strength of the 2 or 3 weeks to this race, but just didn't have that kind of little bit of kind of freshness, that zip that Remco had there. So I think he just does a couple of short, sharp sessions beforehand, just make sure he's got that zip in his legs. But maybe just one long ride, I think, on Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday would be the kind of key. Everybody's different, and maybe getting that kind of 6.5 hours in. I can't really see the World Championships being a long one. I know the distance is long, but I think it'll be quite quick. So you just want to make sure he's sharp enough. I don't think it's too hilly. Over the Crow Road is not overly difficult for these pros. The small kind of climbs that are around Glasgow aren't that much. It's just the constant efforts of the lefts, the rights, and staying near the front is going to be the kind of key to winning Glasgow. And I think really you have to kind of take this one on from the front. It's not a case. The World Championships traditionally you have to kind of sit back, save, and not really show your face until the final kind of couple of laps, or even the last lap if you can get away with it. But Glasgow's going to be a bit different. I think you have to make some efforts to make sure that you're still in it, because it is more of a kind of criterium. And for anybody that's ridden a criterium, you can't ride a criterium at the back.
It's fascinating to hear your insight about the course, Brian. I think for maybe some people who aren't aware of the course in Glasgow, it might come as a bit of a surprise as that criterium nature of it. Was it not wet when Mark Cavendish won there? No, it wasn't.
It was sunny. I was at the race next to Sunny.
I've imagined that.
It was the first lap he went away. I think there was about 5 of them away. And he was away all race, so that's what I was saying. Take it on from the front because it's short, sharp climbs, lefts, rights, all over the place. Geraint Thomas won the Commonwealth Games there. It was damp in the Euros when Matteo Trentin won. But I think, really, Montrose Street, which comes a lot closer to the finish. It's a different finish because it finishes in George Square this year. But I just think it's going to be mega. It's just disappointing I'm not going to be there and just covering a lot of it remotely.
Well, let's have a look back at how it unfolded today. It was on the lights that Remco Evenepoel decided to light up his race in the white skin suit in the mottled sunshine under the clouds there as he hoovered up behind Julien Bernard, one of our breakaway riders of the day, dropping off. He must have looked around and thought, yeah, I've got no chance of getting on that. And then going across the finish line in the wrong direction for the first time. We had this leading group of, 6 in the end. It was really strong. It contained Nathan van Hooijdonk and, oh, dearie me, I've forgotten who else was in there. Romain Bardet, of course, the last 2 riders of our day-long breakaway. But they were joined by Remco Evenepoel, Vlasov and Peo Bilbao were the only 2 to be able to eventually go with him. They went through that completely uncontested and seemingly irrelevant sprint there in Usurbil, coming back in towards the Murgil for the final time, that last climb. And we really were thinking that it would just be that last launch pad where Remco Evenepoel would go clear. And he really tried, laying it on a couple of times, really pressing on the watts. It was Peo Bilbao who looked like he had come off worst to begin with, but then just slowly closed up. And at this point, I thought it was Alexander Vlasov that was going to be challenging Remco Evenepoel. But in the end, as we went over the top, it was him who was coming off worst. This was impressive, Brian, wasn't it, what we saw Bilbao do? Not only did he challenge Remco in the sprint, but he did this, didn't he? 2 occasions came up alongside Remco Evenepoel and put the pressure on. And I'm guessing that's something he didn't have to do. He could have hung on to the back wheel of Remco Evenepoel anyway, and I don't know how much, what do you reckon, Brian, if he hadn't made those 2 efforts, do you think he might have had a bit more left in the sprint, or am I just dreaming?
Yeah, I think a bit more of the latter there. It was just a case of, I think he just wanted to kind of try and keep the pressure on and ride at his pace. I think the last thing Pello Bilbao wanted was any surge. So he felt that maybe Remco was the strongest, but he wanted to keep this. But when it came to the sprint here, it was just enough left in the legs.
And it still was relatively close. Remco Evenepoel sitting up and celebrating from a few metres out, knowing he'd got it. But it wasn't a massive gap between the 2 of them. But it certainly did look like once Remco had started to come past Pello Bilbao, that was that. So he goes now into the lead alongside Marino Lejarreta, the first ever winner of the San Sebastian Classic back in 1981. As having won it on 3 occasions. The riders who sit on 2 wins are Alejandro Valverde, Luis Leon Sanchez, Laurent Jalabert and Francesco Casagrande. Sanchez, of course, the only one who is still racing of that little group of, 5 riders on 2 wins. We're looking down on the harbour edge now. We should be pretty close to bringing you the podium presentation that we'll bring you here on our digital coverage. Do not forget, Brian and I will be back at it again tomorrow, 2 days in a row, as we bring you the Circuito de Getxo from just a little bit further southwestward along the coast in Bilbao, starting outside the Guggenheim Museum, where the opening stage of the Tour de France started this year, and taking in 7 laps of a, 24k circuit. Late on, it takes in 2 slightly bigger laps, going over what was in the Tour de France was known as the Côte de Piquet. In this instance, it'll be the Alto de Piquet, that tough second category climb. It ramps up to 10%, or beyond 10% at its lower slopes as well, where it steepens a little bit. And that, of course, was the stage where we saw the Yates brothers do their thing in the opening of the Tour de France this year. Remco Evenepoel opting for some black shorts. That's interesting. He's had a little kit change. Just adjusting himself into his new black shorts and a clean white jersey. Makes sense, actually. It was a little bit dirty. You've got to keep the white pristine. Bit of a shame, Brian. I always think it's a bit of a shame because I love the Belgian national champions jersey. It's such a smart looking jersey. Yes, the world champs jersey is a bit special too, but a little bit of a shame not to be able to see Remco Evenepoel in that. Of course, if he doesn't win in a week's time, we'll get to see that Belgian national champs jersey a little bit more, but it's a smart one, isn't it? Alexander Vlasov there, crossing the line and making a fine return to racing, having not raced remarkably since the Giro d'Italia. And looking like he has trained well over the summer, the Russian. Well, our podium-bound riders are ready. We are ready. The sun is out.
Gladiators are ready.
Yes, it's nice to see that Remco's been wearing his helmet all summer as well, Brian. That's fantastic. Helmet strap, tan line. Brilliant, isn't it? He's not been spending much time on the beach having got off the bike, has he? That's all on the bike. If he's not on his bike, he's sitting down. If he's sitting down, he could be lying down. If he's lying down, he should be asleep. Indoors, in the hotel, on training camp. But not stay standing there in the sun too long. He's going to get some nasty burn where that helmet strap's been. Looking back at some fantastic slow-mo shots of the stage, both out in the open sunshine, in amongst those forests that Brian mentioned that are a regular feature. There we go, exiting another of them. in the San Sebastian Classic. Great shots of the Basque fans. What a summer of cycling they've had to enjoy.
And now it's Scotland's turn next week.
Oh yes, oh yes. You have worried me a little bit talking about the rain, by the way, Brian, in Scotland. I'm doing a job up in Scotland on the mic at the finish line in George Square in Glasgow, hoping to entertain the crowds and not annoy too many people. And I did the same thing in Harrogate in Yorkshire, and it rained, as you'll know, for about, what, like 8-9 days straight. I caught a terrible cold, even though I was in a commentary booth for the whole of the week. I caught a horrific cold. I've never been so ill by the time we got to the men's road race at the end of it all. This time round it's different though, because the men's road race is earlier and we finish pretty much the whole championship, all the different disciplines, with the women's race right at the very end of those enormous, biggest ever World Cycling Championships up in Scotland. I hope lots of fans are going to be travelling there to enjoy it. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity, particularly in Glasgow, for those of you who want to see the road races, to go and catch plentiful sights of the riders around their multiple laps of that criterium-style circuit, which is going to be really interesting. Of course, last year in Australia, we had a very urban-looking finale to the road races, but this is quite different. This is right in the middle of Glasgow itself, so it will be a fascinating test. Of course, it's part of an enormous championship which includes trials, indoor cycling, mountain biking, downhill cross country, pretty much everything except cyclocross, which, Brian, I have to say is something I'm a little bit... I've been quite vocal about this over the last year, and I kind of feel like actually putting on a summer cyclocross world championship once every 4 years would be ruddy brilliant.
Well, if it's not there, it should be a winter sport, part of the Olympics.
Yeah, well, you're right. Actually, you're absolutely right. If we're saying it's not a summer sport, then let's get it in the Winter Olympics. Bang on. Absolutely. It's not exactly near enough to cross season to overlap either. It would be absolutely perfect. Of course, so many of our best cross riders are racing on the road, and some of them racing on the mountain bike as well, Peterson and others. But yeah, once every 4 years, because these championships, of course, are going to happen every 4 years in the year before the Olympics, so as not to interfere with the Olympic cycle. Anyway, back to the Basque Country and back to our podium for the 43rd edition of the San Sebastian Classic.
That's La Jarreta.
There we go, well spotted.
Not him. Him.
Fantastic. Oh, what an appropriate handshake as well. For the man who's now also a three-time winner of the San Sebastian Classic, Remco Evenepoel. He will no doubt be wearing his sapela, the Basque beret, beret, I should say. There it is. There it is. He's waiting to be presented with it. I think I'm saying it right. Sapela. He'll have to take his cap off, surely. There we go. That is a special memento. I'd have thought the sapela is an even more special memento than the trophy. You won't forget that. Is he going to be the first man to take 4 wins in the San Sebastian Classic? Well, at his very young age of 23, my suspicion is yes. Let's see, though. I wonder, Brian, after the Tour de France, there was an awful lot of talk about, people saying that maybe Tadej Pogačar needs to stop focusing so much on racing well all year round and just on the Tour de France. And I wonder whether that might be something that be levelled at Remco Evenepoel at some point, because he's won Liège, of course, again this year. Will it become, if he becomes this Tour de France focused machine, I wonder whether we'll get to see a little bit less of the one-day classic star that is Remco Evenepoel.
I think, the boys want to race, don't they? Taking that away from them, it's going to be a long wait, a lot of training camps. So as far as I'm concerned, if any of them were on my team, I'm just going to make sure that you keep them happy, and they're happy racing, they're happy winning. I think when it looks to Pogačar, I think the whole team in the Tour, they were looking at each other and they didn't know what the problem was. Maybe that that crash and, you know, had a big effect on his preparation, and he just kind of ran out of energy. But, you know, he was at it right from the start, wasn't he? He was racing away, looking for the bonus seconds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe that crash did have a bit of an effect.
Pepillo Bilbao, after what's already been a fantastic year and a very emotional ride for the Bahrain victorious team since the incredibly sad loss of Gina Mader at the Tour de Suisse, continues his really strong summer. Tour de France stage win, and very, very close to the win here at the Classico San Sebastian.
Mikel Gurutzeagak emango dio saria, garraio azpiegituren zuzendaria da bera, eta dakizuen bezala hirugarren sailkatua gaurko laster.
Be fascinating to see, Brian, I guess, the changes that we see in Remco Evenepoel over the course of the next year. He said in his interview yesterday he knows he's got a lot of work to do to level up with Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar, and I wonder whether that will change a bit of the rider type, because we saw how good his sprint there is, we know how good his snap is when he attacks as well. It's one of his real weapons, isn't it, for Remco Evenepoel? It'll be interesting, I think, to watch the changes in him as an athlete and the way he races over the coming year.
We know that Pogacar is a kind of punchier rider than Vingegaard. Vingegaard, there's nothing of him. When you look at Remco, I know he's small and things like that, but he's still a bit more kind of punchy. But his weaknesses at altitude, on his steep climbs, they've been answered. So slowly but surely, his weaknesses have been answered.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful, lovely. And very well observed by our three riders here, who must be absolutely exhausted, probably slightly parched as well, having disposed of all their drinks and gels and what have you, with 10k or so to go. But